Hey everybody, what is good? Here we go. Unit 3, Lesson 3, Exploration 1. And what 3.3 is all about is about how energy is going to flow through ecosystems. And so the first thing we want to do is touch up on a little bit of review. What are ecosystems? Where do we find them? What different types are there? What kind of organisms? How are we going to categorize these ecosystems? So as we scroll down, there are several things that we want to talk about. The different things, the things that make up ecosystems, they're going to have boundaries and they're going to have different components, which are going to be the organisms living in there. Remember that ecosystems also include abiotic factors, so things like soil and water, right? So everything's going to go into an ecosystem, but we're also going to talk about the living organisms in there and how they're going to feed off each other and how the energy is going to be passed. So as we scroll down here, right, here's the structure of an ecosystem. And we talked about this earlier when we talked about these individual things. We talked about inputs and outputs and structure and organization. So remember, we have an individual organism, and the individual organism can be anything, right? It can be a bacteria cell, it can be an alligator, crocodile, it can be a human, right? But anytime we talk about a population, we're talking about the same areas, the same species, same place, same time. So we're talking about whatever species this is, we're talking about in that given area, how many of those individual species are there. And once again, you can set the boundary however you want. So if you're going to talk about the number of humans in the United States right now, currently, right, that would be the same place, same time. However, you could say number of humans in Kansas. You could say the number of humans in the world. You could say number of humans in, France. You could say, so you can set the boundaries. You can also set the time frame. So number of humans in England in 1925. That would be a time frame species. You could also look at number of wolves in Yellowstone National Park in 1952, right? That would be a specific population. Okay, then a community, we're going to add all the other living organisms. So this is all biotic organisms, okay? All living things. So now we're talking about any of the other species. That includes plants, that includes animals, that includes bacteria, fungi, all organisms living in the water, prokaryotic organisms, all of it. Then when we get to an ecosystem, this is where we're going to include all the non-living factors. So we're talking about water, we're talking about rocks, soil, the type of air that we have, the pollution that we have, anything like that. Then as we go there, we go to biomes. This is where we link ecosystems together. So if they have similar traits and properties, this is where we link them together. And then the last one is we have the biosphere, and this is where all living things are found, and non-living things. It's where all of them live. So as we scroll down, once again, I just took the time to talk about these. Population, all individuals in the same species that live in the same place at the same time. Community is all living organisms, a collection of all the different populations in one area. And then the ecosystem is where we're going to throw in the non-living things, such as the climate, the soil, water, rocks, all of that in the area. Now, as we come down, we talked about a biome, right? A biome is the regional or global community of organisms characterized by the climate conditions and plant communities that live there. So to make that simpler, we're taking ecosystems that are all over the world, and we are basically giving them a name, and we're lumping them together if they have similar traits and similar climate, animals. So what we'll find out too is that we find different biomes at different lines of latitude, which are flat, right? Latitude, flatitude. So what we're going to find is that we're going to see a lot of, and here are the biomes down here in their names, right? So we have deserts. Deserts are going to be this light yellow, but we're going to find a lot of them at similar levels around the earth, north and south. Now remember, a lot of the climate is similar from the equator north and the equator south. So when we look at this red, right, this red is somewhere which should be grasslands, right, temperate grasslands. We're going to find that it is going to be a little bit, probably about 35 to 40 degrees lines of latitude. And if you look down here, these are also at around 30 degrees. So maybe a little bit lower lines of latitude down here. But then as we come out here, we're going to find our tropical rainforests very close to the equator, right? We don't have any rainforests up here. We don't have any rainforests down here. They're all found around the equator because the climate, the amount of rain and the temperature is perfect for that. Obviously, we're going to see the taiga and the tundra far away from the equator because the sun is predominantly going to move around the equator. Okay? So, it's important for you to know as well that not all biomes are on land, what we call terrestrial. Okay? Terrestrial means on land or land-based. About 71% of the earth is covered with water, and it too is home for lots of different animal and plant life. So we're going to call these aquatic ecosystems, and then there's two groups. We're going to have saltwater, which are our oceans or our marine, and then we're going to have freshwater, which is the water that's found on land, but those are our lakes and streams. Okay? So that's a little review on ecosystems and how we organize them and what they're made up of. As we move on, we'll look into how the energy flows and what that's going to look like.